Hi everyone, before we get started with our festive webinar, I wanted to tell you about our festive offer that we've got running at the moment. £50 off any 3-month rental of our powerful A920 contactless donation device, perfect for boosting your Christmas campaigns at events, markets and high traffic locations. With a short-term hire, there's no long-term commitment, giving you flexibility during the busiest fundraising period of the year. It's available to both new and existing customers, and you can short hire up to 5 devices with this offer. The offer is valid from the 1st of October all the way through to the 30th of November. The redemptions code is Xmas 2024. So how do you qualify? Confirm your commitment by the 30th of November 2024, and the contract must be signed within 2 weeks after the deal expires, or the offer won't be processed. So get in quick and maximise your fundraising potential this festive period.
So today's webinar, we're going to be focusing about all things festive preparation, what strategies, what plans, and also what sort of gadgets and solutions you potentially could be focusing on. What are the key strategies to maximize fundraising during the festive period?
Okay, well, it probably goes without saying, but one of the key things is to make sure you embrace and engage with what is known as the spirit of festive giving. So that spirit of generosity. So you can emphasize festive themes, like holiday giving, 12 days of giving, so 12 days of Christmas and how you can function that in. Christmas is also very, very popular for that urgent-based campaigning. So, we need your help now. So a lot of that is utilised as well. So I'd certainly have a look at going down that route. You can do personalised appeals. You can do social media campaigns, which are obviously huge, and they're growing and growing more and more and more as we go further down in throughout the years. Yeah. Look at how much it's grown over the last sort of 10 to 15 years. We'll come on to a bit more about social media, I'm sure, as the webinar sort of goes on. Yep. But a lot of them all link back to one key thing, and that's storytelling. Yes. And I know we'll talk about that as well, about how storytelling can be utilised and the power of storytelling. But it's really key to kind of have a look at your charity, have a look at the work you're doing, and any way that you can pull in an emotive story or a powerful story from what you do and utilise that in your festive campaign. Now, all of that obviously is all about online. You can utilize QR codes in a lot of them, but it hasn't necessarily talked too much about actual terminal donation technology that you can use. The way you could utilize that is working with partners. Yeah. So a lot of partners and corporates and businesses will actually do match funding over the festive period. So if you can talk to them about whether they will have a terminal, whether they can do a Christmas jumper day or bacon bat day, I've seen done as well, where so the staff go in and someone is responsible for bringing them in, and then they make a donation for those the bats or the cakes or anything like that, and then the corporate obviously will hopefully match fund that, so whatever they raise, you get it doubled. Another thing that I've seen work really well is a lot of these businesses have big car parks, and over the festive period quite a lot of people maybe go on leave or they're closed at the weekends, and weekends we know is quite a busy shopping period. So another thing to look at is whether partners or corporates are happy for you to use their car park as a public car park. And we've had volunteers in the past at the entrance taking donations, and people can park there for the day. And again, asking the corporate to match fund that. In-person events, so they're obviously very popular. You've got the likes of your Boxing Day dips, your the reindeer runs, Santa dashes, all those sorts of things. Fantastic events, and that's another thing that you could look at running over the festive period, and making sure you've got those terminals there on the day to generate funds from their supporters, their friends, and their family. And also remember at this particular moment in time, donor receipts. The reason I mention that is for those that know about the tax side of things, people who do own businesses. Obviously, a charitable gift is a taxable element. So do remember donor receipts, and obviously utilise that, because people will be looking to give and utilise that as a taxable benefit.
I've got a question. So I am a new charity. I've just set up. How do I find these corporates who would be willing to do some match funding?
A very good question, and it's asked a lot in every charity, those that are starting up their corporate sort of fundraising. Have a look at social media. And see where other charities are publicising partners that they've worked with. Have a look at the local newspapers as well. Have a look at those local businesses. If you're a very small charity and you work within a specific local community, that is a unique selling point for your charity. So speaking to those local businesses, local solicitors, estate agents, because they're more inclined to support local charities. Obviously, when you're talking in the bigger side of things, the bigger national charities, then obviously, you're looking for those big national corporates that are very public about the fact that they give to charities. If you have a look at all of the big supermarkets, they publicise who they're supporting and things like that. But invariably, those bigger charities have already got their corporate teams all well underway.
So let's say, referring back to myself again, should smaller charities or newly formed charities be afraid to reach out to these corporates?
Not at all. No, not at all. They should definitely reach out to them. There's various ways you can do it. It depends on the size of the corporate, the size of the charity. Very small local charities, I've seen success with them actually utilising social media in terms of instant messaging, so actually messaging local corporates. A lot of them utilise social media themselves, so that is actually sometimes the best approach. The days of writing letters to all your local corporates is kind of dwindling off. And invariably, they probably get several of them through, and a lot of them will end up in the bin. So social media is key, instant messaging, or physically going in person, making sure you're speaking to the right person within that organisation.
That's really key, because I can understand that it could be a bit daunting for newly formed charities or smaller charities to know what to do when it comes to corporates, or even understanding what match funding is. So you highlighting that process is definitely very valuable.
I think the key thing when they are approaching is it's very easy to just go and say, I'm a local charity, I'd really like your support. Are you willing to support me? And we'll come on to the power of sort of storytelling and things like that. But it's important about how it's communicated. You've got to talk about, if you're a charity, what is your mission? What is your aim? What's your goal? Why are you there? What difference are you making? And if you've got it, an emotive story as well, because that's what's going to pull people in.
That's powerful. So how can branding play a role in enhancing the festive experience during a charity's campaign?
Okay. One thing, first of all, branding is crucial all year round. You're a marketer, you know that, and I'm hoping everyone on the call will know that. It's so important that your charity is recognised, for whatever that is, whether it's a logo, a brand, a mission statement, colouring, whatever it is. It's really important that you're recognised, and that is crucial, like I said, all year round. But what the festive period allows a more emotive approach to your branding and how you utilise that. So doing a memorable campaign, for example, that people remember, not just because of your generic branding, but something you've tagged onto that. How can you do that? You can use emotions, so festive themes. You can do messaging. Again, stories come into this. You can utilise that. But one important thing is don't lose your generic brand. Don't go too far away from that. People don't even know who's running your event or running your campaign. So that's really, really key. So you can tweak things, like I said, add that festivity. A prime example is what you've done with the Payer Group logo behind us. It feels a bit weird. We're in October. I'm wearing a Christmas jumper. But we thought we'd get into the festive. It looks good. Well, I thought I'd get into the festive spirit.
I'm wearing red. It marks it to you.
But something simple like this, where you put a Santa hat on there or Father Christmas hat on there and some branding around it, that's kind of, you could go as that sort of level. You could go much bigger as well. But it's just really key. Do not lose who you are. That's really the important thing there. And for me, obviously, you know, I'm a fundraiser at heart, and from a fundraising perspective, it still comes back to what I said, storytelling. Branding gives that platform for telling stories and create those, that thing that's people are going to remember. You know, think of all those campaigns, certainly social media ones, that have gone viral because of how emotive they are. And people then remember the charity because that they've done this emotive, you know, heart-pulling sort of story or video that they've uploaded onto their platform.
So Ben, how can charities leverage contactless devices to maximize the contributions during that festive season?
So we've already talked about working with corporate partners and things like that. So with that, and also yourselves working with supermarkets, small cafes, tea rooms, to put these terminals in, think about strategic placement. So you're looking at high traffic areas, markets, supermarkets is really key. You know, whether anyone likes it or not, supermarkets are one of the highest traffic areas in any industry. Partner with, like I said, retails, venues, Christmas time, hotels, they're all being utilised. So see if the reception desk is happy to have them. If you have got things like Around Me, so totems or mini DTVs, which will come on to what they are, fantastic to put there, and they're engaging as well. So the negative to just putting something on a counter and leaving it is you are hoping that the business that you're sort of working with promotes them. The upside to using something a bit more interactive does mean that there's that opportunity there that it's already selling itself. It's eye-catching. So do think about that as sort of the type of unit you're using. When you're doing your events, we've talked about the Santa dashes, reindeer runs, Boxing Day dips, New Year's Day dips. You know, have the terminals there ready. You know, there are going to be friends, family, supporters, passers-by. You know, I've been to a few of these events, and the amount of time people literally who didn't even know the event was happening, and they pass by and see 100 people diving into the freezing cold sea on Boxing Day and New Year's Day, they start asking. They'll ask, oh, what is it? What are you doing? And then when you talk about who you are and why you're doing it, inevitably that then leads to a donation. So having that technology there ready means that, you know, you're more likely to grow the income at that event, because without going back sort of 2 or 3 webinars, but people don't carry cash anymore. So those passers-by that don't know the event's happening and don't know what you're doing, inevitably they're probably going to have a card or a phone or a watch, but they won't necessarily have cash. So that helps you to be prepared.
In terms of the actual devices that are readily and agile enough to be in these settings, what would those be?
So going back, we talked about the A920s, A50s, we've got the P66s, we've got the Apollo. You know, all of these terminals can be handheld, so they can be out and about, they can be handheld, or if you are putting them in a business, you would need to be looking at obviously P66, Apollo, because obviously of the unattended element, because you are leaving them and you can't guarantee that somebody is going to be there or around at the time. So you would be looking at them for that scenario. The sort of things to think about in terms of terminals is the branding. So the fantastic thing about the payer group setup in our terminals is you can change the image if you want to that's on the screen. So if you are doing a bit of a festive campaign, you can upload the image and it will do it across all of your terminals for that period. What we are progressing to, so an update that's coming shortly, is you'll be able to group your terminals. So you could actually change the image just on a handful of terminals. So what that will help with is if you are doing a partnership with a business, you could do some dual branding on the terminals as well. So it's not here yet, but that is something that is coming very soon. But at the moment, we can easily change the image on the terminal, you know, a few clicks. Use high quality equipment. We've talked about it a lot. You know, there are competitors out there on the market. There are really cheap devices, but it's all about that high quality equipment. The A920, I think I've said it before, I'll say it again, is by far the best terminal that I've used. If you're looking for something that's high functioning, highly durable, and very, very easy to use, comes top for me every time. You can do preset amounts, really key. We've talked about it before, whether it is static or handheld. Having those multiple amounts means that it's a much quicker experience.
Similar to what we've got here.
Similar to here. It's a quicker experience for the supporter. Sometimes the supporter will want to stand and talk to you and have a conversation. Other times, they literally just want to select an amount, tap and go.
Yeah.
The negatives to some other devices are you have to manually type in the amount every time, which obviously isn't ideal.
Yeah.
Think about Signal. Signal is really, really key. Some of the terminals do have Wi-Fi functionality, the likes of the A920, the A50. Obviously, the P66 and the Apollo don't. However, if they are put into a business, they have the Ethernet port. So you can actually just plug it direct into the internet. So you don't have to worry about mobile signal or Wi-Fi. And subject to budgets, and this is where this interactive technology comes in, evolve your offerings to interactive technology. So here we've got the mini DTV. So this has actually got loads of different sort of uses in terms of how you can utilize it. So this one here, it's got a rescue video that's on a rolling loop, which you can see playing now. So that's a montage of rescues from the RNLI. And then it's got an infrared sensor, and what will happen is it's on a timer, so it won't pick us up for a minute, but when it does pick us up, it will then play a call to action video. It's actually one of our volunteers on there who is saying who they are, where they're from, and the difference that the donation would make to the RNLI. And then when someone does tap to donate, another video would play, and it's a thank you video from, again, one of our volunteers. So it's a very personal approach. And what we would try to do at the RNLI is the call to action and the thank you video will be from a volunteer at that station.
Okay.
So again, it's just bringing that sort of more personal element to it. The other thing to consider is we're obviously a charity that covers the whole of the UK and Republic of Ireland. So what this also enables us to do is, in the likes of Wales, for example, we can make this bilingual. So we can have a volunteer in Wales who can be speaking Welsh, which is obviously the preferred option in Wales. And then we can subtitle it in English. So we're offering that ability quite easily on one of these devices. The other option with this, though, is you don't have to have this call to action and this the thank you. You can have it as an emotive storytelling video, which just pulls people in, and then they tap to donate.
Yeah. Do these machines make sound?
They can do. I've muted it because I didn't want it, don't want it drowning us out, it's got audio. So it's, all the videos on there have got audio, so we could turn that up. And obviously it's got the beep when you make the donation as well. But it's got settings in there where, it's got audio, it's got visual. So if you have got the emotive video, for example, you could actually set it so when someone donates, it audibly says thank you, for example. So all that options are there. Obviously the Apollo here next to me. So you'll see it looks very familiar because it's in the same casing as the P66. The main difference between the P66 and the Apollo is this has got the multiple amounts on the screen. So the screen's bigger, it's a colourful screen, whereas the P66 has that smaller singular amount that you have to rotate with the sensor button. So for me, this one is obviously an upgrade from the P66. And then behind me, which I don't know too much about, if I'm completely
Just show them.
This is our obviously a larger totem, and this has got loads of different options with this. So you can see this is powered by a web interface to an extent, so you can have all sorts on there. YouTube videos, you can have your website on there if you wanted to. It's touchscreen. I won't touch it actually, in case I change the what's on there. But it is touchscreen, so you could have your website, and people can literally, be on your website. And with this, obviously, you could have an online donation page, or you can obviously attach a donation terminal to it as well. So
in terms of options for the higher end charities that have a bigger budgets and for charities that have a lower budgets, could you maybe take us on a journey of what charities on a lower end could consider?
So I mean, obviously we've got the terminals, so the Apollo, the P66, A920s, A50s, I mean, they are the bread and butter anyway. You know, even at the RNLI, we've got numerous amount of those terminals. So they're out and about every day, just doing fundraising in day-to-day activity, events, collections, quiz nights, you know, you name it, they're out there, they're doing what they do. But you've got to remember, although the RNLI is a massive charity, we started from somewhere. And we started our journey on contactless right the way back in 2017. Now, we kind of grew that quite significantly in 2020. And since 2020, you know, we've now grown that even more. And this is becoming £1 million income stream, and is showing no signs of slowing down whatsoever. So I guess my advice is, even if you're a small charity, start where we started. Get some terminals, get them out, whether it's an event, a collection, whether you've got an asset that you can put it on a counter, get them out, get them generating income, get your supporters familiar with the fact that you're introducing this kind of technology. And then what you'll see is that income will grow. You'll start seeing that increase as the weeks, the months go on. And then you'll get to the stage where actually this income has grown so much, if we invest in it slightly more and maybe go into the realms of the mini DTV or totems or plinths, then you'll see you're opening up your opportunities there to grow income even further. So, you know, to be honest, when you're starting, it doesn't matter if you're small or big. Get yourself just in there, get started with a terminal or a few terminals, get them out, and then you'll see the potential there. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Like we said, this is an interactive webinar, so please make sure to get your questions in the chat, and we will do our very best to get those answered. What are some of the examples of successful festive fundraising campaigns that you've seen, and what made them effective? Okay, so in terms of campaigns themselves, in terms of what makes them effective, we've talked about a couple of things already. So that essence of urgency, really prominent at Christmas, the spirit of giving, and a few examples where they've worked really well. So the Salvation Army's Red Kettle campaign. So if you're not familiar with that, so that actually launched back in late 1800s. Wow. And really, it's kind of fundamental into how fundraising has progressed, because the idea was that they give cash on the spot. So it's highly recognisable, and it's just simple. You know, it's a red kettle and people put money in the kettle. So really simple. And that's why that's been so effective. Yeah. Now, Movember campaign is an interesting one. So hopefully you've heard of the Movember campaign. So the effectiveness of that is it's a mass audience. Yeah. Huge social media presence. So, you know, it's very easy for people to pick up and take part of. Now, those on listening or looking in on this webinar will be saying, well, hang on, that's not festive. Yeah. That's November. You're right. That's when it started. It has become more and more festive as it's gone along. So if you have a look now, they have sort of brought into the fact that it's the lead up to Christmas. A very famous one and very apt, Christmas Jumper Day. Yeah. Save the Children, launching that one. Yeah. Schools, clubs, workplaces. Yeah. Love getting involved in that. You know, everyone wears Christmas jumpers anyway. Yeah, not me. No, you. Everyone but you. And, you know, what a fantastic idea for a campaign. Yeah. The effectiveness of that is the fact that it is something that people were probably already doing. Yeah. And all they've done is kind of brought this campaign charity giving element to it. So it's very easy for people to get on board with, very easy to register and take part in, raise funds, give it to a charity, and everyone just gets away with wearing a Christmas jumper, which they would love to do anyway, I'm sure. So, you know, why are they successful? There's an emotional connection sometimes with the charity. They're simple. They're easy to access. A lot of them have their urgency and timing, like I said. And as an added bonus, if your partnership team can bring a corporate on board, we've already talked about the match funding, but over and above that, if it's a big enough corporate and they've got that wide reach of people as well, that dual branding of a campaign works incredibly well. So there's a few examples there, but there are there's hundreds of successful festive campaigns out there, but those are the key attributes of making it a successful campaign.
Yeah. How can storytelling enhance the effectiveness of a charity's fundraising campaign?
Yeah. So storytelling is something that I'm actually quite passionate about myself. So there is training available. There's other people out there who do a course specifically around sort of storytelling and the importance and the power of storytelling, which I highly recommend if you're a charity that is looking to potentially, rebrand, relaunch, or do a specific campaign, to do have a look and see if something like that would be of benefit, because it's crucial to any kind of new campaign, that storytelling element.
Yeah.
So to go into storytelling sort of in a bit more detail, I could go really deep into it and talk about how the chemicals work in a body. So I won't go into that deep detail.
It's not chemistry, though.
It's not chemistry. But that is a key function of it in terms of, there are chemicals within the body.
Yeah.
And if you time things right and get the emotions right, that's what impulses that donation. And then we could go on to the next level, is once they've made a donation, at that point, they've got another chemical in their body that's actually, they're on a high.
Yeah.
And that's the point when you want to grab them and keep them and make sure you give them a longer journey.
Yeah.
And that all stems from the original storytelling, because that's the bit that pulls them in and gets those chemicals working and then fuels through to a donation. But the power of a storytelling is that emotional pull. Now, we've all seen adverts, we've all seen social media videos. There are many ways that you can do an emotional story. You can look at the positives, you can look at the negatives, and they both have a place in the market. Me personally, I prefer going down the negative route, just because I think that really emphasises much more about the difference that a charity makes. However, don't get me wrong, there is definitely a place for positive, and there is a place for both on the market. Stories are so powerful, and you can do them in all different ways. And I'm going to sort of give a couple of examples that I've seen. So I'll use an RNLI example first. So we used to do a fish supper campaign that was specifically for the month of October, and we released a video. And the video was really powerful in terms of, it was a family sitting down just about to have their dinner, fish and chip dinner, and the pager went off. And one of the parents left and obviously went to save a life at sea. And then you saw kind of this snippet of video from both scenarios. So you had one of the parents out going and doing a rescue on the boat, and you had the other parent at home with a plate of food that obviously was left, and the plate of food was put in the microwave and left there ready to reheat later. And then obviously the rescue was done, it was finished, and they came back. Everyone was in bed, and the person put the microwave on, and then they had their dinner. And at the end, there was just a simple line at the end, and it was the other parent up in the bedroom, and it said, "The ping of the microwave that lets me know you're home safe." So it brings to the reality home that our crews of volunteers, this person have left their family home, left their family dinner to go and risk their life to save someone else. And the other parent in the home is there, obviously very, very proud of the bravery and the courage of their partner going and saving a life at sea. But actually, they're also there thinking that they're risking their life. What if they don't come back?
Yeah.
And then the emotive part of it is that person then knows by the ping of the microwave that they're home safe.
Yeah.
And right at the end where that line is, the other parent who's at home is in bed, and you see them smile when the ping of the microwave goes off. Very emotive, very simple, but effective. Another one just to talk about, which so I'm not although I love storytelling, I'm not very emotive myself. So I
Mr. Scrooge.
Yeah, Mr. Scrooge here. But I have to admit, there was a particular video last year which I could not stop talking about it. It hit me so hard, and that doesn't happen often. My wife turned to me and she didn't know what was going on, because it was very weird for me to continue talking about something that I'd seen. And I'll mention it, and hopefully, you can all go and watch it. There might even be someone from the charity on the web and listening in. But it was shelter. and it was called Good as Gold. And basically, in short, there was the girl was there, and she was in, I think it was like a doctor's surgery or something like that, and post office, actually, sorry, it's a post office, and she overheard a cashier say to another child, if you're as good as gold, you'll get what you want for Christmas. So this girl, who was homeless, we believe, in the video, then spent the next probably duration of the advert until the last kind of 30 seconds doing good. And there was upbeat music, and it was very lively. It was lovely. We're all happy. She was carrying people's bags for them. She won her pass the parcel at one point, but gave it to the next child. All these things that she was doing to be as good as gold, because all she wanted was what she wanted for Christmas. And at this point, you're thinking, well, that's great. She's been as good as gold. She's going to get what she wants for Christmas. And because you're aware that she's obviously homeless, you're expecting that she's going to get the home for Christmas. And right at the end of the advert, the music changes. The screen goes very dark. It was very colourful, and then it goes very dark. And the alarm goes off, and the mum kisses her on the head and says Merry Christmas, and they're still not in a home. And the way the music changes even, and then you've got all this noise, a baby crying, for example, and then the advert ends. And so emotive, so powerful, and obviously stuck in my mind because I'm still talking about it a year later. So, don't underestimate the power of just one simple short story. And these adverts are like 2 minutes long. So never underestimate it. I would highly recommend any charity, whatever you're doing, utilize your social media, and over that festive period, put something out. You never know how viral things are going to go. Going back to the original question, we're human beings. We are emotive. Even me, who's got a heart like a stone. I really can't, encourage people enough to and utilize your mission statement. Just to sort of pop that in as well. That's really important. Whatever your mission statement is, if you can wind that in as well, because inevitably, your mission statement is actually very, very concise, and very clear as to what you do. So try and sort of maybe piggyback onto that, because if that's clear and concise, then if that's the basis of your story and your video, then you can't go far wrong.
And I guess the reason why we're kind of, even from a marketing perspective, we know the increase of video right now when it comes to getting people's attention. So being able to, you don't need to be a technical whiz when it comes to the execution. Great execution is important, but the impact a story can have, as you said, somebody who may not necessarily be an emotional person, a story can make a great difference.
Don't be afraid to do something yourself. If you're a small charity and you obviously don't have the budget or the creative team in house, give it a go. You haven't really got anything to lose. Just give it a go. You'll know if you watch it back whether it's suitable to upload or not.
If it doesn't move you, it won't move you. That's a good gauge, right? That's a good gauge. What role do digital platforms and social media play in festive fundraising, and how can charities use them very effectively?
So we've talked about social media already, but there are some key things. So expanding reach. Social media, like I said, has blown up over the last 10 to 15 years, and it's a huge platform and opportunity to reach as many people as possible, get that visibility. You've got a global audience at the end of the day. You're not restricting yourself in the, I was going to say the olden days. Make myself sound really old. It used to be newspapers. You used to publicise an event or talk about activity in a newspaper. Nowadays, though, that newspaper would have a limited reach. Social media, global. straight away. But you can do some targeted advertising as well, though. So those that are familiar with social media, you can pay. So you can pay the platforms to allow you to target specific people, specific areas and things like that. So that is an option if you wanted to.
Yeah.
That's subject to, the size of your charity or who you are trying to target. Obviously, talk about storytelling. The power of social media with that is it can literally be a very short video content that you can upload, and very quickly that could become viral.
Yes.
But the other thing is you can also get user-generated content. So although you may upload a video, you might actually decide to do a campaign where other people upload videos. We've seen it before. Probably the one that springs to mind is the Ice Bucket Challenge. Was huge.
Yeah.
And that was predominantly user generated. The supporters out there were doing it. So whoever thought up that, incredible, because they put the onus on everybody else.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible.
So, if you can think of something like that where you've got that supporter base to say, send us this, then fantastic. And then people obviously can maybe donate and support them on the back of it. Peer-to-peer fundraising, you've got crowdfunding. So you've got opportunities there where platforms offer the ability for people to set up a fundraising page for people to give within their close network of friends and family. So if someone's very particular about a charity at that festive period, do promote that to people. Facebook Donate. Quite often now, I don't know if you've seen it, when it's close to your birthday, Facebook will send you a note saying, would you like to fundraise for your birthday?
Yeah.
Do highlight that to people, especially on the festive period as well. When you get to a certain age, what do you want for Christmas? If you want something, generally you could go and get it. So if you're of that giving nature, then instead of asking for presents, you could send a note to friends and family and say, instead of giving a present to me, I'd love to raise £100 for charity. Will you donate?
Yeah.
We talked about viral campaigns. So, but that viral campaign doesn't have to be on the back of a video. It could be as simple as a hashtag. Hashtags nowadays are trending, and I say nowadays, for the last few years. I'm old school. I'm still learning hashtags. So I don't quite get when people go hashtag I, hashtag when, hashtag. I don't understand that.
That's a good word.
But no, hashtags are very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So do utilise them as well where possible. And with social media, the other thing to think about with social media, aside from the videos you can upload with the reach, the storytelling, all things like that, social media is a great platform to build trust and transparency. Put regular updates on there throughout the period of the campaign, because if someone's engaged, it's good to keep that communication going. It might be one way, it might be you literally doing all the communicating, but do keep that up, because that builds that trust and transparency with a supporter. Whilst you're giving that update, use testimonials, case studies, so gather some information from supporters and share that with the wider audience on social media. And what you'll see from that is you'll see a growth in your supporter numbers, your followers, your Twitters or X's. Not sure what should. But you'll see that grow, and then on the back of that, that's what I talked about storytelling. That chemical element comes in where they're on a high because they've supported you. You need to kind of keep that going, and that's important to do that. And it sounds obvious. In amongst all of that, donation buttons. I know it sounds obvious, but the amount of times that you see things where loads of effort is put in on all these campaigns, but it's actually not easy to donate. So it's really key to have that function there. That could be as simple as a web link or a QR code, which obviously with Payer, for example, we acquired Good Things not long ago, and we've got that technology there. So it's very easy to create a link or a QR code which lands on a bespoke page, which could be bespoke to the campaign or to the branch or to that specific video even, which has a very simple donation page on it. So do not forget that the aim of all these campaigns is obviously to generate income, and that bit has got to be simple. So, just remember that as well.
Yeah, now having a clear call to action is very, very important. And one thing that stood out to me there was when you talked about user generated content, UGC, because it's a lot of the work's been done for you. All you need to do is repurpose that content across your social platforms. A lot of that stuff can also be repurposed into newsletter content as well, because that UGC, or the user generated content, you've got people being your cheerleaders, you've got people being your ambassadors, which goes a long way to building that credibility and that emotive connection, which also is done through storytelling. So it's all linked.
Exactly. And when you said there about combining it all together, for example, one of the greatest tools I've seen is where people submit, sometimes it's messages, sometimes it's not videos, and the charity will do a montage of some of them. And people love seeing that theirs has been picked and put up. So keeping that going and saying, whose will be featured next or something to encourage more people to submit. But you've just got to make sure that you've got that in your plan to keep that up, because it's a powerful tool to get more and more on board, but you've got to be consistent. That's really, really key as well. Is that consistency's got to be there.
I really, really like that. What are the benefits of customizing your contactless donation devices with your charity's branding?
So first and foremost, trust and credibility. It's very easy for someone to go and someone on the street who's collecting, if there's no branding on that terminal at all whatsoever, then the person may question, obviously, is that money going to the charity? So branding is really important. The best thing about the terminals that we offer here, the Apollo, the A50, the A920, they've all got custom branding options. You can put personalised image, you can do personalised colour coding. With the P66, obviously it's slightly different because there's no screen to brand, but there are branding plates available which then give that terminal the branding of the charity. It also offers enhanced visibility. So if you imagine, someone's collecting now, some charities do have branded clothing, but not all of them, obviously, because there's a cost involved. So having the technology branded means that enhances that visibility to the supporter. Stronger connection to the mission. So if people see it, it allows you to communicate your charity's mission more effectively. Because on these devices, if you've got, using sort of these sorts of things as an example as well, that enables you to communicate what we do without the need for, someone to be there. So that's really, really key and fantastic use of this type of technology. These sorts of things, the countertop ones and the more immersive ones, they indulge that impulse donation. I mentioned it when I talked about the Boxing Day dip as well, where supporters go by and they necessarily didn't know the event was happening, they didn't know the charity was going to be there. They've just decided that they want to donate. So for that, you need something that's eye-catching, branded, to give that person the ability to impulse donate. So that, and we've got the branding on the terminals, or we've got the immersive technology to do that. And the other thing is the personalised messaging. So you can customise donation amounts, so the experience is very quick, it's prompt, and you can make sure it aligns with your charity's tone and your charity's goals as well, in terms of when someone donates, what happens then.
How can charities measure the success of their festive fundraising campaigns, particularly when using contactless technology?
Really key, obviously. If you run a campaign, you need to be able to measure how successful it's been, so you know whether to run it again. All different things that you can do from this, and all of these are available on the Payer platform that we do. So, for example, we've got total funds raised. So how much was actually generated? And then what you can do is you can compare that to maybe your targets that you were set. You can compare it against other income sources. So, for example, you might have collected cash at the event as well. So you could do that cash versus card comparison. You could compare it to previous campaigns, because you'll hopefully have the statistics from previous campaigns. campaigns that you've run. You could look at number of transactions. So with that, you can look at the total number of transactions. You can then look at the average donation, and that will give you an indication as well on, the performance compared to other activities that's done. Are we finding a higher average donation at this particular campaign compared to another one? Then what you can do using the data from the payer platform is have a look at your overall campaign return on investment. Because although we know that there's costs of terminals and things like that, there are marketing costs and all those elements to factor in. So bringing all that together, you can then have a look at the overall return on investment of the campaign. The sort of bits that you would get from the terminals, which is key, you've got the cost per transaction. So the terminals themselves, whether you're leasing them or paying that service charge, you've then also got your transaction fees. You need to bring all that information in. And then you can have a look at the efficiency of not just the terminals, but the campaign as a whole. Other things that you can look at, so not looking at finance particularly, is the user engagement and behaviours. So on a number of the terminals, you can have a look at, you could do gift aid, for example, so you can see how many people were converted to gift aid. You can add an option to gather data, so you can see how many people then not only donated, but wanted to progress that journey to become a supporter and remain in contact with the charity. And then you can have a look at whether they were new or existing donors. So you can have a look at the comparison. How many new did you get versus obviously existing donors? And depending on the activity will vary the outcome of that. If you've got a really strong supporter base and you're running a very localized event, the likelihood is a lot of people taking part would be existing supporters, but you might find that quite a lot of people on the day, friends, family, might be a lot of new supporters, but all of that data you can pull from it. My advice would be to try and, where possible, gather donor feedback and measure their satisfaction. Maybe have a look at what they thought about the use of the technology. Was it easy to use? You could do a post-donation follow-up. So if they have registered as a supporter, you could ask for feedback about the campaign as a whole, but also about the technology that was used. So factor that in, because it's all really key, especially when you go into the realms of the mini DTVs, the totems. You do want to know what people's feelings were when they interacted with such technology. And then behaviour and impact of the community engagement. So what impact has it had overall on the giving behaviour of your local community at that particular time of year? Because if you can focus on particular times of year that are, if you like, hotspots to do your campaigns in, and they generate much more income than running it at another time of year, then you know what's going to work best moving forwards. Yeah.
What are some creative ideas for using contactless technology to boost donations during the festive season?
Are you trying to steal my ideas?
Just start. Just start. Let me go on.
So, I guess a very short answer is the possibilities are endless. So some of the ideas I've seen done, or I've done myself. So at events, I've seen Pledge a Gift. So that's worked incredibly well, where you've got a terminal on site, maybe a gala or a ball, and what you ask beforehand is for people to come and pledge a gift. Now that gift could be time. Yeah. So if you've got if it's a local event and you've got local people in there, they could offer their services. So if you've got a gardener, for example, he's willing to go and give half a day's gardening to somebody as a gift, and then people need to donate to get that gift. So all sorts. We've had chefs, gardeners, cleaners, but if you can work that incredibly well and you have the terminal there on the night, and then people pledge how much they want to give for the gift. So almost like a mini auction. You could do it as an auction, you could do it as a closed auction or a silent auction, but that works really, really well. In terms of how you can utilize the technology and evolve it, make it more interactive, you could do a light show, for example. So you could have a P66 terminal or an Apollo using the pulse function, and you could have a tree with lights on it, and they donate, and then it does a light show on the tree, for example. All these things are quite sort of simple to do. The technology's there. I've seen Christmas trees up with QR codes on them, with obviously the baubles have got QR codes on them, and the idea is that people scan it and they donate almost that decoration to the tree, and then at the end you get this obviously flourishing tree with lots of baubles on it, and they've all obviously been produced by donations. Christmas wrapping stations. So I've seen charities do that before. Again, having a terminal and open up and just say, we'll wrap your presents for you. Come along, and you could do teas, coffees at the same time, and who wouldn't love having the presents wrapped for them? So I think that's a great one. But one thing, have your tap to donate points at all your events. That goes without saying. The other things you can do though is you can have an interactive screen. Probably slightly bigger than this one. Let's say you did the totem, and you could have every time someone donates, it could build an igloo, for example, or you could have Santa's sack, and every time someone donates, a present drops in, and it gradually sort of fills Father Christmas's sack before it goes out on Christmas Eve. I mentioned the car park before. Speak to corporates. You could have your donation terminals at car parks, and then they donate, and so on and so forth. The other thing to look at is augmented reality. So becoming more and more popular, more and more recognised. So you could have someone donate and then they can in some way interact with a reindeer, or they could be on Santa's sleigh, or linking it in some way with your charity, for example, could work incredibly well. And don't forget, obviously, the power of virtual Christmas cards or shooting stars, for example. All of them could be powered by a donation. Like I said, the possibilities are endless. It all depends on how adventurous you want to be, what budget you've got. If you're thinking this year, for example, you haven't necessarily got the budget to go into augmented reality or the totems or the DTVs, the biggest bit of advice is to have your terminal at all of your events, and then piggyback it with things like maybe the wrapping station, which doesn't cost that much to offer those sorts of things. And then maybe once you've seen in the benefits of having the technology this year, evolve onto something maybe a bit more interactive in 2025.
Yeah, no, that's I'm not going to take all those ideas, but you did rattle off a few that did stick in my mind. That was good. Final question: how can you maintain donor engagement beyond the festive period to ensure there's potential for ongoing support?
Yeah, so it probably goes without saying, but one of the first and most important fundamental things is thanks. So thanking the donors personally, so sending some personalised comms, so that they feel special, because they are special. They've made a donation to the charity. So that's really, really key. And then maintain consistent communication. When I say consistent, though, I don't mean too much. There's a fine balance between, giving them consistent, informative information to bombarding them. So make sure that balance is obviously right. Tailored content. So if you're able to identify sort of where they are, for example, tailor the content maybe to a county, a region, or a country if you're working across the whole of the UK and Ireland. So, tailor things in a way that's going to be relative to them. And that will help to obviously keep them engaged. Offer ways for them to stay involved. So depending on the size of your organisation, you could be running events, you could be running other campaigns. Talk to them about it. Give them information about how they can get involved in those sorts of things as well to grow their support and, to give them a lifelong journey, because we all know that eventually what we'd love to do is for these supporters to become legacy donors. And the only way to do that is to keep them on board, keep them warm, and keep them engaged and involved in what you're doing as a charity. Maybe create a donor recognition program. I've seen that done in some locations where, donors are recognised over a period of time depending on how much they pledge or how much they give. Engage through storytelling. Hot topic on this webinar. But again, it comes down to the use of videos and things like that. You can embed videos now in all of your electronic communications. So utilise that. Again, making sure it's tailored content, relevant to the audience. But that's incredibly powerful as well. So do tap into that and utilize that storytelling, and make them feel part of something special. Now, that could be something as simple as inviting them to a networking event. Invite them to a webinar. You could do a charity webinar that's just talking about the work that you've done, or to do a bit of storytelling at a webinar, do some donor forums, gather donor feedback. So all of these things are just about engaging in just different ways, and not all at once. So like I said, not to bombard them, but to kind of have a set out supporter journey, so that you're gathering information from them, you're engaging them, you're still generating that income growth from them by encouraging them to donate in various ways. It could be that they continue to donate, or they encourage friends and family, or obviously the other thing is, if you're a volunteer-led charity, is opening the opportunity for them to potentially come and volunteer, and become engaged in the charity in a whole other way. So all of that, I mean, the fundamentals are communication is key, tailored content, thank you, and just making them feel warm and engaged and involved in what the charity is doing.
Yeah, no, thank you for kind of bringing all that to perspective. And even going back to what we spoke about when it comes to the user-generated content, when somebody feels involved at the early stages of the campaign, you've pulled them in.
Yeah.
When they see that they're being shouted out, or some of the things that they're contributing to the campaign is being picked up or is being used, it does something. You know, it makes the donor feel like they're part of your journey.
Exactly.
You know? So that's something that, what do I know? But that's something that I'd also say as well.
It's about making them feel special.
Yeah.
You know, and they are special. You know, people. The difference between charity. We talked about it when we were talking about transaction fees. So going back to that webinar, which was all, you know, very technical percentages and all of that. But one of the things we talked about was, when someone goes to make a purchase at a retail shop, they're paying for something. So they're getting something in return, physical.
Yeah.
With a charity, you know, they are getting something chemically. They are getting that kind of warm feeling, but ultimately they're giving something to a charity on the hope, belief, and trust that charity is using their donation to do something good in the world. So, you know, it's really important to keep that alive and to make them feel special for doing that. So the thanks comes in, but also, like you say, utilising those opportunities to recognise them in another way. Whether that is a shout out on social media or whatever it may be. You know, it's important. Our donors are the one of the most important factors of anything any charity does. So, really, really key. Yeah.
Bringing this session to an end, what are, let's say, the top three most important things to summarise that charities need to be aware of when preparing themselves for festive fundraising campaigns?
So keep it simple. And by simple, I mean simple for the supporter as well as obviously the basis of what you're doing. Storytelling, no surprise there. That's really key. I mean, it is key throughout the year, but specifically for festive, it's so much easier to pull at people's. You know, it's the. I said it right at the beginning of the webinar. It's gone now. Something of giving, the festive of giving. No, the time of giving. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's the time of giving.
Yeah, it's time of giving.
It's because it's not October. We're not there yet. So utilising that's where storytelling comes in. And then the other bit which I touched on is the simplicity of donating. Make it simple. Then that's where the technology comes in. You know, if it is a face-to-face event in any way, shape or form, have your terminals there ready to take the donations. If it is online, utilise a web link, utilise QR codes, and, you know, Payer obviously have the terminals. We've got the Good Things platform. You know, we really are a one-stop shop in terms of offering all of the technical resources you need to enable you to take donations on whatever activity you're doing.
Yeah. As you're just talking there, I just had this imagination that the festive period was storytelling during the festive period was enough to turn Ebenezer Scrooge's heart into a soft, gentle man.
I wouldn't go as far as soft and gentle man.
But if storytelling can do that to Ebenezer Scrooge,
Yeah.
let's utilize storytelling.
Yeah. There you go.
Let's utilize
We'll
storytelling.
have done that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Sandwich man's
very timely. Must be getting hungry. No, thank you for very informative session today. A lot of value. A lot longer than last time, but we wanted to kind of spend a bit of time on this specific topic because we know that it's a big one.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring the big guns and bring a lot of value to that. So make sure that you've got your questions in the chat. Even past this session, we will be looking at them to make sure that we can respond to them as well. But make sure that you join us for our next session, which will be in about 3 to 4 weeks' time. Get yourself clued up on the things that we've got up going with our previous webinars as well, which you'll find some links in and around this session. And we hope that you will join us on our next session. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye.